Welcome back to Sports Broadcasting. It's part 2 of our bracket prediction for 2019 NCAA tournament. We've collectively decided in these Sweet 16 teams in the South and Midwest regions. In the South, we have number 1 Virginia making it to the Sweet 16 this year after their loss to UMBC in the first round last year. They will take on our Cinderella team, number 13, UC Irvine. They play their first and second round games in San Jose, which is only about 40 miles from where their campus is, and they went 30-4. They won their Big West, and they have two really big good post players down low. We have them making to the Sweet 16, defeating Kansas State with an injured Dean Wade, their best player, and then moving on and beating Oregon in the second round. So UC Irvine, Virginia. I'm going to choose Virginia this time, and they're going to be in the Elite Eight 1 year after losing to UMBC. And then the next game, Villanova, the 6th seed. I have them escaping 2 games, barely winning those. Their first round game against St. Mary's. And I have Tennessee barely beating Cincinnati in the second round, surviving their way into the Sweet 16. Villanova, Tennessee, it would be a great matchup if this actually happened. It would be a fun game to watch. In Tennessee and Villanova, great matchup. Tennessee has a lot of experience, especially in the tournament, and that's why I'm going to pick them winning. Villanova's coming off a national championship year, but they don't have the same personnel they did last year. So I have Tennessee defeating Villanova to move on to the Elite Eight in the 1 versus 2 matchup between the Volunteers and the Cavaliers of Virginia.
And over on the Midwest side of the bracket, there, as you see, a 12 seed getting their way through Auburn and Kansas in the first 2 rounds, playing North Carolina in the Sweet 16. North Carolina, a completely built team. They're a good team. They would likely win this matchup, especially in the regular season. But they still will win here. There's 11 seeds apart. It's a big difference. But we got North Carolina moving on to the Elite
Eight. New Mexico State, you may be wondering why we put them in the Sweet 16. They're a team that lives and dies by the three-point line. If they are making their shots, they're a tough team to beat. They went 30-4. They went undefeated in conference play, won their conference tournament. They're a tough team to beat when they're hitting the threes, and I believe on a stage like this, they will be. So that's why we have them moving on to the Sweet 16. Down here, we have the 3 seed Houston and the 2 seed Kentucky. I believe Kentucky might be upset in the second round by Wofford, maybe, but I have them moving on. And they have a lot of experience, but it's March. I have them getting beat by the Houston Cougars, who are trying to rebuild what they once had in their basketball program. So they move on to play UNC in the Elite Eight. So Virginia and Tennessee, UNC and Houston. Virginia and Tennessee would be a good matchup. I think it would be a very close game. Virginia they play great defense, but Tennessee, the way they move the ball, the way they limit their turnovers, I think Tennessee would have the advantage there, and I think they would win that game, which would be played at Louisville. So I'm putting Tennessee in the Final Four.
And North Carolina and Houston, as you said, Houston trying to rebuild their program, and as I said earlier, North Carolina maintaining their balance throughout their history of their basketball program. But North Carolina and Houston, it would be a close game. Houston with Cam Johnson hitting a lot of shots. He's one of the best shooters in the country. And Houston, they had a run last year but got beat near the buzzer by Michigan in the second round.
No, in the Sweet 16.
In the Sweet 16.
In the Sweet 16. So Houston is a team with a lot of experience. They did lose their conference championship game to Cincinnati, who was also a strong team. But this team is a very good three-point shooting team, and they're consistent from the three-point line. And they have experienced guards who have been here last year. If it weren't for Jordan Poole hitting the half-court shot against Houston last year, Houston may have made the Final Four. They were this close last year, and I think they'll come back hungry this year. I think they're going to upset UNC and make the Final Four. So that sets up a Final Four with Duke, Gonzaga, Tennessee, and Houston. Yesterday we predicted Duke to beat Gonzaga. We were split on that. He thinks Duke's going to win. I think Gonzaga's going to win. But nonetheless, we have Duke in the championship. And then we have Tennessee and Houston. This would be a different game. Two teams that usually aren't this far or haven't been in the past few years. I'm going to take Tennessee. Grant Williams, Admiral Schofield, and Jordan Bone is underlooked there. Their point guard, he's probably the best true point guard in the country. He's very consistent shooting. He's a great driver, and he really distributes the ball well. They have a great chemistry. So, the national championship, Duke and Tennessee.
Duke and Tennessee would be a great game, and it will be if they meet up in the championship game. Duke, with the big three of the freshmen, Cam Reddish, R.J. Barrett, and of course Zion Williamson. But Tennessee has experience, and they have Admiral Schofield, they have Grant Williams, those two can make big plays down low, and they have Lamonte Turner, who's a good guard. It's a solid team, and the reason why we have them here is for them to be winning the national championship.
We have Tennessee winning the national championship. I think as good as Duke is, as good as their freshmen are, in a tournament like this, you can't win without having that much experience, or as little experience as Duke has. I know they have Coach K behind them, but I'm going to go with Tennessee because they have experience. They were here last year. They got upset in the Sweet 16 by Loyola Chicago. But I do think that this year they'll win the championship. They've really got a great team. Rick Barnes is their head coach, and he's done really well with them. They did get destroyed by Auburn in their championship game, but Auburn couldn't miss anything from the three-point line. I think Tennessee's going to win. It's going to be hard for Duke. Like I said, without having the tournament experience, I think the pressure will eventually get to them, whether it be in the championship, the Final Four, or maybe even the Elite Eight. The Fab Five, about 20 years ago, the Fab Five they were one of the best teams in college basketball history, and they barely lost in the championship to North Carolina. I think something like that could happen with Duke this year, but nonetheless, we have Tennessee. Thank you for watching. That's it.